Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. This is our Sunday football show that covers all your Northeastern local sports, New York, Boston, Philly. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. You can see us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We also have our Instagram platform and Twitter platform that you can tune into at Jack and Mac Sports, and also at MacMan McGrath. Our website is Mac Sports Insiders. You can get to that by going to macandjacksports.com. Like, follow, comment, share, and subscribe where you can to help us keep growing. I'm Mac with my co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association, and the show's historian gatekeeper. How you doing today, Jack?
Real good. Football Sunday. Here we go.
Yes, some big games coming up. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to that really heavy starting at 8:30. Anthony Cervino, our fantasy football expert, will be on and help us break down some of the biggest three games and giving us our best plays in fantasy. We're going to get to the sports update first, and that's brought to you by Fanatics. If you want to get the clothing of your favorite team's jerseys, hats, all gear, we have the place for you, Fanatics. Just go to macandjacksports.com website called Mac's Insiders and click on their link. It brings you right to their store just in time for Christmas. Order your special someone's birthday gift, or just treat yourself to your favorite team's clothing and gear. That's macandjacksports.com, website name Mac Sports Insiders. Click on the Fanatics link for all your team's clothing and gear. So Jack, we got a couple interesting things, really interesting things that happened yesterday. Some things that were more entertainment than really solid, and a first too. And I will get to the first entertainment thing that happened last night, and that was the Mike Tyson Roy Jones fight. It went the full 8 rounds. It ended in a draw. Some people think Tyson got the better of him. I've seen some people saying Roy Jones won. And really, an exhibition fight, is there a winner, Jack?
I'll be honest, Mac. Usually I'll be the guy to ask. I'm not the guy to ask for this one. I didn't get to fight.
Right.
I just read up about it the next morning, so on. I'm sure I'm going to be able to watch it on YouTube whenever they put it on, and I'm going to tune in. If you looked at it strictly as entertainment, then it's fine. If you looked at it as a real fight, not quite, even though they went at it hard at times. I mean, according to the punch count, the statistics from CompuBox, Tyson clearly got the better of it, and that's the consensus, that Tyson should have been given the decision. If you take the decision seriously, I mean, they didn't have regular judges and so on. And it's entertainment. You see two legends in there, like Sinatra and Elvis, kind of like singing, like on a split screen. Who are you going to score it for, Sinatra, Elvis? I mean, when they're way past their best, okay? Yeah, that's what it is, really.
Do you think that maybe it was called a draw on purpose, Jack, so maybe they could do a Tyson Jones too?
I don't think anyone cares that much. So on. I don't even think the fighters care that much. I think they were just glad to get it done with, to entertain people. And the people who purchased the event, from everything I read, they didn't feel they were ripped off.
Okay.
They were entertained. I mean, that was it. They're not saying, oh, what a great fight. They were given entertainment, and a lot of people were relieved it didn't turn out to be the fiasco that they thought it could turn out to be. They felt, okay, we got our money's worth, and let's move on, basically.
Yeah, I hear you. I knew it wasn't serious, both being over, way past their prime, and that, Mike Tyson, turned his promotions over from a normal boxing promotions to an entertainment promotions. I mean, we knew me and you, Jack, we follow boxing. You're one of the most viewed writers in the past, 30, 40 years. We both knew that this fight was just for entertainment. But you got some people out there that take things like this serious.
Well, yeah, well, early in the day, I was watching a serious heavyweight fight. Okay, it was coming from England, Daniel Du Bois against Joe Joyce, a
Right,
battle of two young, unbeaten fighters who had become top 10 contenders. And it's very rare you match two unbeaten fighters. I shouldn't, if I said young with Joe Joyce isn't young. He started boxing late, but
right.
it's all relative to the amount of experience in his pro career. He was a former silver medalist in the Olympics, and it was a great showdown fight with unbeaten fighters. And Joe Joyce came from behind to stop Du Bois in the 10th round. You know, in a very, very good fight that had meaningful repercussions. That to me was really the fight of the day that I was really looking forward to.
Yeah,
Jones and Tyson was a trip down memory lane.
there
It
you
made
go.
us remember of things years ago, what we maybe did in our life when we watched Tyson and Jones, and brought back some fond memories. For some people, it kind of makes you think recapture your youth in a way by seeing them in the
Sure.
ring again.
Sure, it's sort of like listening to a record or a cassette tape, or even on iTunes, listening to one of those old songs where you remember where you were and
Yeah,
what happened.
exactly.
You know, yeah, there was a for the first time, well, at least in a Power Five school, the first female college kicker played. They didn't get close enough. Vanderbilt didn't get close enough during the game to try a field goal. But Sarah Fuller did kick off, Jack. I didn't see that either. They asked the soccer coach from the school if who he thought, I guess, would be okay trying to kick the football because of the COVID situation with the kickers. So they brought up Sarah Fuller. She did kick the ball off. I didn't see it. You did. And
Yeah.
can you kind of describe the
It
kick?
didn't go too far. It was a kickoff, but she didn't kick off the kicking tee. The ball was held for her as if she was trying to kick a field goal. It went about 20, 25 yards thereabouts. I'm just estimating seeing
Yeah.
the kick, more like 20 yards. Yeah, she did what she could. I admire her. She took the field. She didn't have to take the field. And we don't know what anxiety she was undergoing in
Sure.
case there'd be a live ball and the players would be running on the field. What's she supposed to do? Try to make a tackle? Are they
Yeah.
supposed to try blocking her?
Yeah.
And had she gotten injured, being taken off the soccer team, a woman, and all of a sudden thrown on the football field without any football training, imagine she'd gotten injured.
Yeah.
Imagine the feedback we'd be getting about that today.
Yeah.
But listen, we admire her. You know, the effort. She gets an A+ for effort, and yeah, and she did what she could on the kicks.
Well, can you imagine if she made the tackle, Jack? Right?
Well, listen, I
You
wouldn't
know?
be shocked. The idea that she took the field, she showed a lot of heart, a lot of intestinal fortitude. If she made
Yeah.
the tackle, the guy who got tackled probably would have gotten a little bit ribbing from his teammates.
A
It
little
would have
bit.
been unfair, the ribbing he
Right.
would have gotten, but
Right.
nevertheless, it would have been a fun thing they would have joked with him about.
Well, we were talking before the show, Jack, and semi-pro. There's a semi-pro probably team in your area, believe it or not. And these guys don't get paid a lot of money. They kind of do it for the love of the sport. You'll have a wide receiver that's 5'6",
Yeah.
and a quarterback that's 6'10". I mean, they do what they can to put a team together. Up here in Connecticut, they had a very good semi-pro football team at one time, and they were called. There was two different names: the Hartford Oaks and the Hartford Knights. And Marv Hubbard actually played up here for the Hartford team before he went on to play for the Raiders. And they did try. One of the guys on the team had a wife that could kick, and they put her in as a field goal kicker. And the guys on the other team intentionally went after her. I mean, they intentionally hit her, got roughing the kicker. Back then, that was almost like I don't want to say an insult, but, kind of, this is not where you're supposed to play. So, I mean, just her going out there, like you say, giving it a shot, trying to kick the ball off, possibly having to tackle somebody. You got to give her a little bit of a respect, even though she really didn't kick the ball that far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that was necessarily sexist, that type attitude. I'm trying to draw a comparison. when Michael Jordan decided to play baseball, the baseball players they were kind of mad at him about it. Like, you're
Yeah.
going into our domain. That was kind of the thought. Randy Johnson hinted he might throw at him. And he wanted to see
Yeah.
how those Air Jordans would work then, getting out of the way. And I think I remember the play. Was she a holder? Because I remember a woman
Yes.
years ago was a
Yes.
holder, bobbed
Yes.
the ball and tried to pick it up, and they hit her hard.
Yes.
And one of the men said, "Look, this is serious business. See, you're going to be treated like a man here. I'm going to hit a man hard. I'm going to hit you hard the same exact way." And the truth of the matter is, the guy wasn't wrong. Once you're on the football field, everyone is an absolute equal, unless in this day and age you're a quarterback. You're treated like a prima donna by the officials.
Right. And Jack, that's why I call you the show historian, because you are correct. The holder was the kicker's wife.
Right. Yeah.
That was the wife to the kicker.
Clip. Oh,
right.
She was on the ground trying to grab the ball. I mean, he hit her hard there.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I don't think he was hit, even though I think he put a little extra emphasis because she was a woman. He kind of wanted the guy who made the tackle there to kind of like just prove a point. Look, you're deciding you want to be a football player. I take this game very seriously. So
Right.
this is how it's going to be.
Very true. Very true. So there is some football news and some big football news, Jack. Detroit fires head coach Patricia and the GM.
Mac, weren't you calling for Patricia to get an extension a few years ago, an extension on his contract?
That wasn't me, Jack.
That wasn't you. I'm sorry, Mac. I mean, I can't say I remember you saying it. But it sounds like something you said when the Lions were winning a few games earlier. We talked about this on the show, I think yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
It's it serves no purpose with 5 games to go outside of just shutting people up. And the media response wears on the owners of teams. It wears on everybody. You get tired of hearing it. So finally, to shut everyone up, the Lion ownership made this move. They felt it was inevitable. They went as far as they could go. And they also fired Dan Quinn. They fired their GM as well, because the GM was the one who fired Jim Caldwell to hire Matt Patricia. So the Lion ownership coordinated the contracts of the GM and coach to end at the same time. And they held one accountable for the other, which was good, because too often we see GMs making a terrible coaching decision and hiring a coach who really didn't get it done at all. But the GM escapes the wrath of the ownership, and they continue on their position, and it's the coach that's held accountable. So they made it a marriage between Patricia and Quinn, and both of them went.
I mean, it's a good point, but the owners are the ones that ultimately have the decision of hiring that coach, Jack. Don't think a GM is going to hire who he wants.
They go on a recommendation, Mac. If you believe in the GM, you go on a strong recommendation.
Right. I agree, but they also do interview the head coach. I mean, it's not like they say, okay, that's who you recommend, we're going to go along with it. They go through the process also. I mean, you can't fire yourself. So I agree with you that, on that recommendation and getting rid of Caldwell, which was probably another recommendation made by that GM, he should have to pay the price. And I do agree that, replacing a head coach, I mean, look at Adam Gase. If they replaced Adam Gase, it would do the Jets no good this year. I mean, it really wouldn't. The only thing it would do is say to the fans, hey, we know that this position we're in is not right, is no good, so we got to do something. So we'll fire Adam Gase. But for the team itself, it really doesn't do any good.
Mac, if a GM wants a coach really badly, they're going to try to sell that coach to the ownership. They're going to see the ownership, and they're going to do the best sell job they can. And a lot of times the owners are going to be a little bit reluctant, but say, okay, if you want it that badly, we're going to give it to you. Now the ownership has the GM on their sights as well as the coach to see how
Sure.
it works out. And if the hire turns out to be great, it elevates the GM. If it doesn't, it's bad. I mean, why does, for example, just detouring very slightly to baseball, does Brian Cashman have such a good relationship with the Yankee ownership? Because he's made a lot of moves. He's tried to sell the team to those moves. And he's also told them certain moves not to make, which they may have made and didn't turn out well. So the GMs are constantly being evaluated as
I
well as
would
the
I,
coaches.
I would agree, Jack, but I don't leave the ownership out of the loop as far as making bad hires or sticking with a coach or maybe even saying to the GM, you gave me two candidates, I'm going with this one. And I mean, I believe that the ownership is more involved than you're saying and than a lot of people think. That's
Mac,
just
they're not going to fire themselves. James
exactly.
Dolan, if he had a superior, James Dolan would have gotten fired.
Oh,
Okay.
exactly.
The
I agree with that
Wilpons,
100%.
if they had a superior, they would have gotten fired. Daniel Snyder if he had a superior, would have been fired by now.
No
But
doubt. No
Jerry
doubt.
Jones probably would have been fired by now, on and on and on. But the owner's not going to fire himself. He has to try making changes. And if it's the owner's decision to bring in a coach, a GM on his own, maybe he's going to take accountability. It depends. But if it's not his decision, well, I shouldn't say GM. That's always the owner's decision. But if it's not his decision on the coach and he's going strictly on the GM's word, the GM better make the right call. Same way with draft choices, especially a number one draft choice when you're caught between two guys. I mean, when you're caught between picking Peyton Manning number one in the draft and Ryan Leaf number one in the draft.
Sure.
I mean, if you go with Ryan Leaf number one, you lose your job. You
Yeah.
go with Peyton Manning number one, you hold on to your job. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and I mean, not only that, Jack. Free agency moves too. I mean, if the amount of money that you're spending, the salary cap, that all falls on the GM. So, I do know that and there are other people involved in that. You've got players ops and all this other stuff that are involved in that. The head of scouting, but again, they all do fall under the GM.
Listen,
So
Donnie Walsh, when he was running the Indiana Pacers basketball team, it came time for the draft. Everyone in Indiana wanted Steve Alford, the hometown boy who played for Indiana for Bobby Knight, to be drafted. Alford was a college star. It came in Indiana's turn. Everyone was excited. Donnie Walsh drafted Reggie Miller and then ran out of the place because he was going to get lynched. Because he felt Reggie Miller was going to be a great pro, and Donnie
and he was
Walsh,
correct.
and that's what turned out to be. And Donnie Walsh had an extremely successful NBA career as an executive. But imagine it had turned out the opposite, and Reggie Miller had the career that Alford had in the NBA and vice versa, and he
Yeah,
bypassed Alford. He never would have been able to live it down.
that's very very
Yeah.
true. So also in other football news, Jack, the San Francisco 49ers probably suffered the most significant injuries in football to some of their stars. I mean, you could put the Cowboys in there too, and you could put a lot of teams in there, but they've been banged up all year. I think they're 4-6. Last I saw, 4-7. So now they can't play in their home field because the region that they're in, and it's Santa Clara, banned all contact sports for 3 weeks. The 49ers aren't going to be able to play any home games for the next 3 weeks. Not only injured, Jack, but they got kicked out of their house too.
Well, they're 4-6, but they're getting players back like Richard Sherman, but they're running out of games basically. And then the tough division, they're on the verge of being mathematically eliminated. In other words, they're going to have to run the table in all probability, win 6 in a row to get into the playoffs. That's not going to happen. Not these next 3 weeks. What makes it bad? Where are they going to practice?
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's one thing you move the games to some neutral site, but where they going to practice? It's a mess. I mean, this season is unlike any other NFL season. I there's no sense looking at an injury report because right before kickoff, someone could test positive for COVID or be around someone who had tested positive. And there's never been a season like this, a revolving door thing, game to game with players, back and
Yeah.
forth, back and forth. The Steelers have to be pretty ticked off. They were supposed to play the Thursday night game on Thanksgiving against the Ravens. They're human. They've worked hard a long time. It gets to be a long season. And I'm sure Mike Tomlin gave them time off after the game. They'd maybe leave right after the game and
Sure.
maybe not have to report back to work till Monday. And the idea of having 3 days off is so, they were so looking forward to that. Having a couple of days off to do nothing and unwind. But the game gets delayed to Tuesday. So they
Yeah.
basically have to work through Tuesday. And now they're playing, I would guess, the following Sunday.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
Steelers are not getting the time off. Maybe Tomlin will squeeze a day in for them. But they're pretty ticked off there in Pittsburgh.
Sure. And I mean, with that, with Baltimore, there's speculation that it was either a trainer or somebody that was on the staff that wasn't wearing a mask while working on players. And, they have a bracelet, Jack, that can detect when there are people that might be COVID, carriers. He was just not following the protocol.
And let me tell you,
let me finish, Jack. And the Ravens, of course, we know that, they're big. Lamar Jackson caught the COVID, so he couldn't play Thursday, and they rescheduled to Sunday. He couldn't play Sunday, so they rescheduled to Tuesday. And now the Steelers have to play that following Sunday. In other words, you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you're back at, playing a game again. And the Baltimore Ravens don't have to play till the following Monday. So they're actually going to get a day off more than the Steelers. And, you think about all those players changing their Thanksgiving Day plans. They maybe couldn't have been with their families like they could have been originally if they weren't playing Thanksgiving. And, of course, playing that Thanksgiving Day, you're on national TV. So I can see why the Steelers are upset. And the Ravens, it looks like almost got a bonus playing Monday night instead of playing that Sunday. So I can see them being upset.
I hate to call for people to be fired. I hate it. I hate to see people lose their job, their livelihood, or whatever. But if that trainer knew the protocol and just decided he wasn't going to wear his mask, and he blatantly didn't wear his mask when he knew those were the rules and he was supposed to, and as a result, he passed on. Some players came down with COVID. The game gets delayed. He has to get fired. No ifs or buts. Flat out fired. Okay?
Yeah, and
Maybe in a couple of years he could reapply when things cool down. But if he blatantly disregarded the rules, there's no way around it.
Well, that bracelet now, if my memory serves me correct, tracks where you are. And so they can keep an eye on you. He did not wear that either. And the Ravens were already penalized under the COVID restriction. I expect there'll be action taken with him. Xavier McKinney, the third-round draft pick for the Giants, was not, got hurt, and he wasn't active on the injured reserve list all year. He's coming to play today, Jack. He's on the active list, and we might be able to see the Giants' big draft pick, the safety Xavier McKinney today. So,
Mac, that's going to be must viewing at 1:00 today. At the same time, the Jets play the Dolphins and the Giants play the Bengals. I mean, must viewing.
I'm going to flip the coin.
The Dolphins obviously have a lot at stake. They're playoff contender. It's a must win for the Dolphins, and for the Jets, it's a must loss. Okay.
Right.
One team must win, another team, it's a must loss situation.
That's not even
new terms. Now with the Bengals, are probably shell shocked losing Joe Burrow. And the Giants could be in first place by the end of the day. They win, the Eagles lose. They're going to be in first place if that happens. And
the
Giants are going to be creating a little excitement here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, Jack. You got to win it on the field, and anything's possible.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to make up. I think the Giants, of course, should win that game. So that's it for the Giants. offensive lineman Cody Ford is out for the season from the Buffalo Bills. I think there's a lot more. I only can say a lot more injuries, Jack, but it seems more prevalent without having that preseason, without getting in game shape. It looks like there's more injuries than before. A lot of leg injuries, Jack. This was a meniscus injury. Again, I think that has something to do, not all to do, but something to do with players hitting lower than they've done before in the past, so they don't get kicked out of the game. So that's it for the Buffalo Bills that I saw. And of course, I think we got a full round of the locals playing today and tomorrow, Jack. Some really big games for people to get in playoff position or to even keep competing for playoff position. And some teams that are, they're on a downslide that got to win, or they may get kicked to the curb, and other teams that are trying to surge forward. So it's going to be a really interesting weekend today and Monday. A lot of big games being played. So I wanted to get a quick mention to the Knicks. They did make some moves. They did exchange draft rights with Houston, a couple players coming over for Houston. And so Knicks are doing a couple moves. I didn't see nothing with the other local basketball teams, a couple signings by their draft picks, but no major moves. So the Knicks behind the scenes are trying to do something. I know they added someone to their staff. I can't remember his name. He's like a vice president, Jack, that's helping out with the GM duties.
That's been going. Listen, but that's been going on for years. The Knicks take these little baby steps where you don't know whether it's good or not. They drafted Toppin to go along with Barrett, and they got Thibodeau as the coach. And maybe things start forming little by little. The Knicks are not going to have a serious surge until one big name free agent comes over to them and their other pieces start gelling all together. It's going to be one of those seasons where, unless Toppin turns out to be a phenomenal player,
Right.
phenomenal, not just a good solid player, the Knicks aren't even going to contend for a playoff position. Maybe they'll improve on the Thibodeau, they'll take a step, but the Knicks are so far away really now. It's so far away.
And the last little football tidbit I'm going to give you, Tua went from probable to doubtful because of a thumb injury. Ryan Fitzpatrick will probably start.
Fitzpatrick will start. Tua's Tua hurt his thumb in practice.
Right.
Supposedly his throwing hand hit one of the other players' helmets, and so I don't know, are they just playing it safe because he's the future, or is he genuinely that hurt? I have to feel he is that hurt because he's inactive, and the Dolphins were already looking to see who would back up Fitzpatrick. And I can't help but think of Josh Rosen, Mac.
Yeah.
Because he was with the Dolphins. He's on the Buccaneer practice squad. And how do you go from a somewhat high number one draft choice in Arizona to get displaced because they got Kyler Murray, and then had they not drafted Kyler Murray, Arizona, Josh Rosen would have gotten more of a chance there, and who knows what type of player he may have become.
I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you for the most part, Jack. I mean, when you change coordinators and teams, you have to start all over again. He did have some talent coming out of college. They kind of passed him over during the draft, and he was pretty upset about it. He did get a chance at Miami. He didn't do too well. I think that was 2 years ago, but it was a different coaching staff, different. I mean, some players get a real good chance, Jack, and others don't, and that's just the way football works. I mean, you hear the stories of 8th round draft picks, that really shouldn't even be on a team, and the coach says, "Okay, I'll give you a chance." And he makes it teams. And then you hear the stories, of course, of the first round, second round draft picks that become busts, and they're supposed to be the next great whatever. Ryan Leaf comes to mind, the quarterback from the Oakland Raiders that got drafted high.
San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, and got really I'm talking about I can't remember the guy's name who got drafted by Oakland with the big arm. who didn't make it either.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. I got a brain freeze right now too,
I
Jack.
think of Pete Maravich, the basketball. Marinovich, was it?
No, it wasn't even close to that. But he had a huge arm. He did well in college. But as you find out, college game,
right? I know who you mean. Yeah,
are two different games, and the coverages are a lot better. They're a lot faster, bigger, stronger, of course. And there's a lot more different schemes they use in pros than they do in college.
Well, Mac, you know what it is? I never played quarterback, but from what I understand, certain players just don't absorb information as far as the play calling goes. They don't absorb it as quickly as others.
Sure.
And that supposedly was a little bit of a problem with Josh Rosen. Like a veteran like Ryan Fitzpatrick absorbs the information very quickly and can run the offense. But Josh Rosen, he was a little slow from what I understood to absorb all the information in the play calling.
And if you could imagine, too, the Cardinals before the new coaching staff got there were just not a good football team. And Miami, of course, before, last year, the end of last year, were a very bad football team. So, I mean, a lot of depends. There are quarterbacks that overcome it, Jack. I mean, Peyton Manning did it. Tom Brady kind of hooked his his wagon to the Patriots, but the Patriots before that weren't that good before Belichick got there. So, I mean, a lot has to do with the situation that you're in, what team you're on, how high your draft. Look at Joe Burrows. I mean, he has all the potential in the world, got hurt, may never be the same again. We don't know. But he's still on a bad team. And, that kind of, it can hurt you in the long run, no matter how great a quarterback you are. So, I mean, that's all. It has a lot that people don't understand that. I think a lot of people don't understand that it has a lot to do with the team around that quarterback, whether the quarterback is successful or not. So with that, Jack, we do have our fantasy football expert, also great at breaking down the games with us. Anthony Cervino's backstage. I'm going to bring him up. He's the host of Fantasy Football Face Off. It's a great site. Go see it. They do a lot of stuff over there besides fantasy. I think he also has, and he'll correct me when he comes on, he's on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, I think it is. So he does have a Twitter site. He's very active and very good at what he does. So let's bring Anthony up on. How you doing today, Anthony?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Was I right with your Twitter handle, Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, great. So
yes.
Check him out on Twitter, too. Ian, so with Anthony every week coming on Saturday, he does us a read of the best plays today for fantasy football, and then we break down the three of the more important games today and possibly on Monday night. So, Anthony, what's your best plays for fantasy today and tomorrow?
Well, there's a lot going on with fantasy because of the quarterback situations in Denver. That's not very good right now. They're going to be going with Kendall Hinton at quarterback, a practice squad wide receiver. They also have Royce Freeman, their number 3 running back. He's going to be in the mix. So I don't like very much from that Denver game. And Taysom Hill had a good week last week for the Saints. He's a guy, I think he has one of the safer floors in fantasy this week. So you could definitely play Taysom Hill. But anything out of that Broncos side, outside of maybe Phillip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon, and the Saints defense, their run defense is the best in the league right now. So I don't really like anything from Denver today.
Okay.
Let's go over to the running back position. Aaron Jones gets the Bears, and he's a player that a lot of people might want to bench because of the matchup. But with the way they run the football, I think this is going to be a really close scoring game. I think Aaron Jones at least gets into the end zone. Dalvin Cook has been having big games against everybody. I believe they even had 88 yards in the loss to Dallas a few weeks ago, even though he didn't go over 100. But Dalvin Cook, he's getting the Carolina Panthers, one of the best matchups for running backs. He's a must start, and I think he's going to be the top producing running back this week. Let's go to the wide receiver position. Keenan Allen gets the Buffalo Bills. Really, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, the tight end in Los Angeles, and Mike Williams. All of these players, I think they're going to have big games. Vegas projects this game right around a 56 or a 57-point over-under against the Buffalo Bills. There's going to be a lot of points to be scored in Western New York. So really, all of the players out of that game could be in your fantasy lineups.
Excellent. We know that Cincinnati Burrows is hurt. Cincinnati Bengals really don't have a great team. Do you see maybe Daniel Jones or maybe Evan Ingram, one of the receivers having a big day there?
I like the Giants overall today. They should win this game. And actually, I said it a few weeks ago. I think the Giants or Washington, one of those two teams, they're going to win the NFC East.
Right.
Daniel Jones, he's been playing well. He's doing really well running the football. I think Daniel Jones is a good fantasy play today. You brought up Evan Ingram, and really Wayne Gallman's the hottest player on the Giants right now. 4 straight games with a touchdown. I think he scored 5 touchdowns in that 4-game time span. You got to get Wayne Gallman in the lineup too.
Very, very, very good. So let's start with the 3 big games we're going to cover with you, Anthony. We got a rematch between the Titans and the Colts. The Colts won by 3 last time. It was an exciting game. The Titans come off a big game against the Ravens. It looks like they're making that commitment to running the ball again. Of course, that opens up the play action. And the Colts defense is playing lights out. They have a great running game too. And Rivers isn't playing too bad either, Anthony. So what are you looking at for the Titans and Colts rematch?
I like the Colts to win, and the Colts are at home. They're playing really good football. Then, so are the Titans right now, but I think I trust the Colts a little bit more. They have a better defense. The Colts have a top 5 defense. The Titans are more in the middle of the pack, and sometimes they actually play really bad. You can get production against them. You brought up Phillip Rivers. The first 5 games this year, Phillip Rivers had 4 games with fewer than 250 yards. He had 1 300-yard game, which was in week 1. And then he had 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. In his past 5 games, he has 2 300-yard games, only 1 game under 250, and a 10-3 touchdown to giveaway ratio. Phillip Rivers, I can't remember the last time he's played this well in a 5-game stretch.
Definitely agree with that. The only question I got for the Colts, and that might be Rivers. I mean, he's playing well now, but he's a little past his prime. The Colts did win the last one. If the Titans lose this, the tiebreaker goes to the Colts. So I think the key to it is getting to Rivers. He can get rid of the ball at awkward angles. Of course, they're going to have to stop that big running game, which sets up Rivers really well at his age. You see Derrick Henry at least, puncturing the Colts defense at all, Anthony?
I mean, historically, Henry doesn't play bad against the Colts, especially in the past game or two. I'm not really worried about Derrick Henry. What I am worried about a little bit on the Colts end, Jonathan Taylor, the rookie, he's not going to play today. He's been ruled out, so it's going to be Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines. My question is, are the Colts going to be able to run the ball effectively without Jonathan Taylor? And Jonathan Taylor, he's not having a great year, but he's still the best true running back on that team. So I'm not really worried about Derrick Henry, more worried about can Jordan Wilkins get going in between the tackles, replacing Jonathan Taylor.
Guys, getting back to the New Orleans-Denver game was funny. Von Miller posted a photo of himself throwing the football, figuring he's going to volunteer to play quarterback, but it might not be the fiasco people are making it out to be. You'd mentioned Kendall Hinton is going to be the Denver quarterback today. He quarterbacked in college at Wake Forest for 3 years. He's a wide receiver now, so he's going to know the offense. So is it really the train wreck that people are making it out to be?
I mean, I know he played quarterback in the past. A lot of guys played quarterback in the past, but there's a reason why he's in the NFL as a wide receiver right now. I don't know how long Hinton lasts at quarterback. I think we can see potentially Royce Freeman and maybe even Von Miller if it gets that bad.
Yeah.
Von Miller, yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
I would say, Anthony, maybe Elway comes out of retirement for at least one game.
I mean, even on the Saints end, we have Taysom Hill. He's not really a quarterback. At least I don't think he is yet.
Right. I agree with that. The Chiefs and the Bucks, Anthony. The Chiefs, of course, they're still a favorite in the AFC to win it. I don't care if Pittsburgh goes undefeated or not. I think the Chiefs are a little bit better. Not that the Steelers can't beat them, but I still think they're the class of there. The Bucks are kind of I don't want to say lost. There's rumblings about Antonio Brown and maybe he's getting the ball thrown at him too much. It doesn't look like their offense is in sync some games. Their defense is very good. But so what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think the Bucks step up and maybe beat the Chiefs, hand them their second loss, or did the Chiefs go ahead and keep rolling?
This is a hard game to project because the Chiefs are rolling, but they were in a few really close games recently. The Raiders, I know Carolina of all teams a bunch of weeks ago, they took them to the wire. And on the Tampa Bay side, they're almost like a wild animal with their backs against the wall right now. They're a dangerous team. I remember I saw stats where Tom Brady, he has not played well in primetime games this year. During the day, Tom Brady has played his best football. I think this is a must-win situation for Brady and Tampa, and I think they get the job done.
Yeah, Anthony, they've shown a pattern this year, the Buccaneers. Whenever they have a bad game, they bounce back the next week. I mean, it's interesting that you're picking them to win today.
It's close. I mean, and it's hard. I've gone back and forth, but I think Tampa, they have to win this game because if they don't, I don't think they can mathematically win the South.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I really believe, Anthony, there's a disconnect between the head coach and Tom Brady. I think, the head coach wants to throw the ball down the field like he did when Winston was there and like he did when he was the coach of the Cardinals. I don't think Brady's built for that anymore. I think, Brady is them timing passing, the scheme where you hit some people, in the slant or on the outside or even on over the middle on timing. I think there's a little problem down there right now, Anthony. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really think that there's a problem down there. And I think that not everybody's on the same page, and that's why the Bucs are faltering. And I also think they might be a little overrated, Anthony.
I don't think Tampa is overrated. I think they have all the talent in the world to go win a Super Bowl. But maybe there is a disconnect with Brady and Arians, or maybe it's Tom Brady and the system. You got to remember, he's played in relatively similar systems for 20 years and a similar culture in New England. This is a complete different ball game in Tampa Bay with how Bruce Arians runs his football team. A lot less discipline. They're a little bit more loose. He's more of a player's coach. But even though he's more of a player's coach, it seems like he's riding Tom Brady pretty hard.
No doubt. No doubt.
Anthony, the Bear Packer game, Mitch Trubisky's back at quarterback. What's at stake for him? Are the Bears just going to showcase him the rest of the year? Is it possible if he plays well, he's the quarterback next year? What exactly is at stake there?
I mean, Trubisky's playing for his career as a starting quarterback in Chicago and maybe in the NFL. I do think the Bears should roll with Mitchell Trubisky. He's better than Nick Foles. Nick Foles is what he is. He plays his best football in Philadelphia coming off the bench. That's what Nick Foles is. He's not a starting quarterback anywhere else. And we've seen that when he went to the Rams, Jacksonville, and now Chicago. I'm not a Nick Foles guy. He had a great run in the Super Bowl. He's going to make a lot of money off his books, but that's what Nick Foles is. Trubisky, I think he's good enough to get this team back on track. We saw him go on a run last year, but is he going to save his future? No, I think the Bears, I'll give a pass to Matt Nagy because he didn't draft Mitchell Trubisky. But, Ryan Pace, with all the bad decision-making he's done since the general manager, Trubisky, those two got to go.
I agree with that, Anthony. I think this has a lot to do more with the Packers defense than anything else. We know the Bears defense is one of the better in the league. I think the Bears offense, of course, they're not as good as the Packers, but I think of the Packers defense can't stop the Bears. I don't care if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback or not. I think the Bears have a shot here if their defense sets up and they can, they can run and pass a little bit on the Packers defense.
The past couple of games between Chicago and Green Bay, 21-13, 10-3, 24-7, 24-23. Those are the past four. They're all relatively close. Now, Green Bay's 3-1 of those games, but Chicago always seems to be within a score away of winning. And to me, that has to do with the quarterback situation.
Yeah.
Speaking of quarterbacks, is there much of a storyline with Teddy Bridgewater, the Carolina Panthers starting quarterback, returning to Minnesota where he used to be the starting quarterback? Is there much of a storyline there, you think?
I don't think so. He had a good run there, and Minnesota had to make a decision because he was coming off of that gruesome injury, and it was either resign Bridgewater, but I think he felt that he would get a better opportunity going elsewhere because Minnesota had Kirk Cousins already.
Anthony, just your opinion on this in general. Detroit fires Patricia and the GM. I mean, this really doesn't do nothing for Detroit. The team really doesn't have a shot to make the playoffs. Don't you think this is just a move for the fans to say, hey, we're doing something, even though, it's really nothing for this year. And it looks like Bill Belichick's so far his coaching tree is not as good as some of the other great coaches.
Well, I think this is a move. If it was supposed to be for the fans wanted Matt Patricia out last year.
Right.
It just wasn't working. I think this move is a little bit too late. They could have moved off of him this offseason, but they decided to give it one more shot. But I like that they cleaned house with both coach and general manager, and they need to hire the right people because the Lions have been a mess. Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback, and to only have 3 playoff appearances in his career, especially when you had guys like Calvin Johnson in the past, there's something wrong with the organization, not Matthew Stafford. I think Stafford gets a bad rap for it. And Belichick's coaching tree is atrocious. To the fact that I think the best coach that I've seen so far is Brian Flores, and he's only coached about 15 games. He looks like he's going to be the most successful one.
It looks that way.
We were joking, Mac and myself, before you came on. We were saying for the Giants, it's a must-win situation because they're playing a weak opponent in the Bengals. But for the Jets, I said it's a must-lose situation if they want to get the number 1 pick. Now, Jacksonville's 1 game ahead of the Jets. They're starting Mike Glennon. So obviously, Jacksonville's on the number 1 pick there. If you had to make a prediction now, who's going to wind up with the overall number 1 pick in the draft?
I didn't know Jacksonville. I didn't know they were ahead of the Jets. Are they both winless?
No, Jets haven't won a game. Jacksonville's won 1 game this year.
Yeah, they got 1 win.
One win, 1 game ahead. I don't know what would play out in a tiebreaker.
I think the Jets are going to end up with it. I think they need it more. But both of these teams are bad. And when you have Fields and Lawrence, if it's going to be Jacksonville and the Jets 1-2, they're both going to walk away with a good quarterback, assuming the Jets are going to move off of Sam Darnold.
Yeah, that's a big question coming up in the future. So this is Anthony's spot again. He's with Fantasy Football Face Off. He's on Twitter. He has a great site over there. Anybody that is interested in fantasy and just sports in general, football in general, they have a great show. They cover a lot of sports and football over there. Very good. So go check out Fantasy Football Face Off. And just one more question for you, Anthony. If you had to pick from the AFC East, a team that could beat the Chiefs, who would be your pick? Would it be the Steelers that are undefeated, or how about the Buffalo Bills, who seem pretty exciting with their offense?
Now, are you talking the whole AFC or the East? Because at first you said the East.
Oh, sorry, the whole AFC.
Okay, the conference.
Yes.
Who can beat the Chiefs? I think the Steelers have to be the answer because they can match up defensively. They can match up going, Ben Roethlisberger can go point for point with Patrick Mahomes, and they both have a deep set of receivers. They both have a good running game. So I think it would be Pittsburgh and Kansas City. If there's anybody who's going to knock off the Chiefs, it's Pittsburgh. If you want me to give you a team from the East, I actually think Miami can beat anybody in the NFL when they're on, because that defense is so disruptive. And I think they're, like I said about Flores, they're so well coached. If they can just have that good day with the offense, I think they can go ahead with anybody.
Yeah, but if Ryan Fitzpatrick ends up, depending on what happens with Tua, Anthony, I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick is consistent enough in big games. And Tua being a rookie is the thing I see the fall back there with Miami's chance. I was just thinking of Buffalo because, of course, Josh Allen and their big playmakers over there, and their defense isn't the worst in the league. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And that's why I was, saying maybe Buffalo would have a shot at them. So, again, folks, that's Anthony Cervino, our fantasy football expert. He also comes in, does a great job with breaking down the games with us, especially the biggest games that are in the NFL on Sunday and Monday. He's on every Saturday with us at 8:30. And, Anthony, thanks again for coming in. Great information as always.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Thanks, Anthony.
You too, Anthony. So there you go, Jack. Anthony Cervino, not only a fantasy football guy, but very knowledgeable in all football, and we love having him on every week. So what we're going to do, always good stuff with him. We got Robert Butler scheduled to come on after our timeout here. He should be on about 9 o'clock, folks. Please stick around. Enjoy our little commercial break we take here, a little break.
We'll be back before 9, though.
Yes, we will. We'll be back in about a few minutes with the rest of the Mac and Jack Sports Show.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of months ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect him, why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though. but they hear more than you think.
Talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Wednesday, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Thursday. I'm your host, Mac, with my co-host and your co-host, Jack Hirsch. And we just had Anthony Cervino on, Jack, giving us the latest in fantasy and some of our key games coming up through Sunday and Monday nights, two days of football that we have coming up, and it's going to be exciting watching these teams stay in contention and battle for the playoffs. Jack, we have our next guest coming up. He's behind backstage right now. He's from the broadcast Sports Skope. He's really good at what he does. If you have a chance, go over and check him out on Facebook. He's also on a lot of different other social platforms. You can see him with the Sports Skope handle. We got Robert Butler coming up for his weekly guest. So let's bring him up and see how he's doing.
Hey,
how you doing,
good morning,
Robert?
Jack. Good to see you.
Rob.
Good seeing you too. You're a little low, Robert. Can you just up
Rob,
so there you
Can you
go.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Maybe it's a short guy, Mac. I mean,
or maybe bring your screen down a little bit so we can get that.
Okay, let's see what we got here.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
That handsome face of yours up there on the screen with us. So, so Robert, I do tell you some of the topics. I message you about some of the topics we're going to be covering, and I must have ESP or something because some of the topics came up yesterday. And one of the topics I message you about is, should a coach take out a starting quarterback if they're having a bad game? And I know a lot depends, and we're not talking about injury right now, Robert. We're talking about, say, the quarterback, maybe he's a younger quarterback or someone that they're not sure of. If he's having a bad game, and me and Jack have debated this in the past a little bit. I mean, it's interesting what Jack says. I don't agree with him, but it's very interesting. For instance, Tua, we found out he injured his thumb in practice, but on that Sunday game, when they were losing and he wasn't effective, Flores takes him out, puts Fitzpatrick in
against Denver. Yeah,
and he has no injury at that time. Do you think that a head coach, if this is going to be your quarterback of the future, I know they're in a playoff race. We know what Fitzpatrick is. He's inconsistent. Some games he looks like Superman. In other games he just makes a lot of mistakes throwing the ball. Do you think a coach should ever take out who you deem to be your starting quarterback to replace him with another quarterback?
Well, in this situation, you've got a first-year guy. I don't see why he would do that. Like you said, not unless it's injury-related. Now, it has happened, like, say, for instance, if he's still an air quote young quarterback and he has been taken out for, like, for instance, Vince Young, Jeff Fisher poured out Vince Young one time, and he was in his second year, I believe. So I do think in certain situations you can do that. It's kind of like having a pitcher, Jack and Mac. If he's given up like 8 runs in the first few innings, he's not having it. I can see it happening, but in a situation where it's a guy's first year, you're not under a lot of pressure to make the playoffs as a second-year team. I don't know what that could do to his confidence. It makes me think about guys if they have full confidence in Tua. Maybe that story that come out a few weeks ago about this is a trial for Tua may have some legitimacy to it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Colin Cowherd always says when a story leaks out, it's because somebody wanted it to get out.
Well, I got to tell you, I disagree. The Dolphins situation is different from, let's say, the the Los Angeles Chargers situation. The Chargers have Justin Herbert, him and Tua, on a similar situation. First-year quarterbacks. They're the franchise quarterbacks of the future. The Chargers are not going to make the playoffs. The games aren't that important as far as the standings go and so on. The Dolphins have an excellent chance of making the playoffs, and they're getting better and better. They have a lot of upside, and who knows what they might be able to even do in the playoffs if they get there. So I think it's imperative to try to do everything you can to win every game to make the playoffs. That's the difference between Tua and Herbert. Had Tua been on a team like the LA Chargers, perhaps you leave him in, you let him struggle more, you let him finish it out, so on. But because of the Miami Dolphins situation, I think Brian Flores made the right move. And if Tua's confidence is going to be so fragile that he can't understand that he's a rookie quarterback, he's struggling, but he's going to be back next week starting. I mean, then he's not your quarterback of the future if his confidence is that fragile anyway.
Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah, it was. It was one of those situations where they wouldn't getting blown out early. It was a one-score game. I don't know why this don't let him play through it. But then again, guys, maybe they're hiding an injury from us. I don't think he's playing today, is he? Because from what I've read, Tua's not going to be playing today.
Yeah, he injured his thumb in practice, Robert. But to kind of piggyback what you said and what Jack disagreed with, I think it's a lot more to do not with the players' confidence, but the team's confidence in the player as far as leadership goes. I mean, I'll give examples of Eli Manning when they had Kurt Warner, Tom Brady when they had Steve Grogan. These were accomplished quarterbacks, but when those two took over, there was no looking back. That was their team. And to me, what that does is cause friction in a locker room where you may divide that locker room, or you may say, okay, Tua's messing up, it's time for Fitzpatrick to come in. How is he ever going to learn to make a comeback drive or to come back and win from behind if you're not going to let him do that? And that's where I disagree with Jack and agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the toughest places to play. Tom Brady struggled in Denver. That would be a good learning experience for him, just to play down to the stretch. They are a team that somewhat lacks offensive tools. They really lack a legit running back right now. I mean, there's a lot to be thought about it. And, again, they lie in the NFL. Brady's had injuries where he's gotten surgery before at the end of the year. Nobody thought he had an injury. Maybe that thumb was probably an injury that he got last week. And that's probably what happened. But who knows? It's like the CIA in the NFL sometimes.
That's possible. Now, we talked about one of the topics I sent you was, should you fire a head coach during the season? And again, it happened. Patricia gets fired along with the GM at Detroit. It really does nothing for the team. I mean, the team is not going to the playoffs anyway. It's more of a move for the fans and the media of that area saying, hey, we're doing something. But even as Anthony Cervino brought up, they could have done that in the offseason and started from scratch. So, I mean, this was like a show-me season for Patricia. What do you think? Should the head coach be fired during the season, especially when you don't have another head coach ready to come in?
Well, it's one of those situations where I think teams do it for possibly it's a toxic situation. I mean, the team looked like they quit on them in Carolina last week going against the XFL quarterback. There's a lot of injuries on the defense for Carolina. They couldn't even score a touchdown. Matt Stafford's body language looks terrible. And also you look at, now this is technically tampering, but teams do it all the time. I'm sure all these great coaches, even assistants, have agents. And I'm thinking the team's representatives are probably reaching out to assistants, agents, in air quotes, around the league. Remember the Nick Saban situation back in Miami? I haven't talked to anybody from Alabama. I haven't talked to him. No, but your agent has. You've already got a deal worked out. So maybe that's what it is. They're getting a heads up. We're giving you a verbal offer. we're doing this air quote legal tampering, and we know that there's several other teams. There's a few other teams that have coaching vacancies: Atlanta, Houston, and that's what they're just trying to get a jump on it. Now, only thing I have a problem with that is the interim coach comes in, he wakes the players up, they play over their head, and then they end up hiring the interim coach. There's a story out that Houston was looking at hiring Romeo Crennel, 73. Now, my issue with Romeo Crennel, last time he was interim coach, he took Kansas City. They beat an undefeated Packer team, and then they ended up hiring the guy only to fire him 2 years later. I would not do that. Players are just playing for their individual jobs. Has it ever worked out with the interim coach? I can't remember a time in the NFL where interim coach has been hired only to be fired again less than 2 to 3 years.
Well, the same thing at Atlanta with Raheem Morris. They're playing better, but it was inevitable they would have played better regardless, okay, of whether or not they replaced the coach or not, because they weren't playing that bad. They were just blowing games at the end early in the season under Quinn. But I agree with you with the interim coaches. There's a major danger because normally the team is going to play a little better with an interim coach, and it's going to give you a false sense of security that he could be a guy going forward, and that's usually not the case.
Correct.
Definitely. So I sent this topic to you too, Robert, and this was based off the Dallas game when they were only 4 points behind Washington. They're down to their 25-yard line, and they decided to call a fake punt and try to pick up the first down. It's only the second quarter. Maybe they think it's going to surprise the Redskins. But when you're doing a fake punt, of course, you're 10 yards back.
Now, Mac, that was in the fourth quarter. Let me correct you. The fake punt.
I don't think so.
Score was 20-16.
2016. Oh, yeah, that's correct.
In the fourth quarter,
correct.
There were about 10.5 minutes to go.
That's correct. You are correct. They scored them defensive touchdowns. Yeah. You were correct. Thank you, Jack. But anyway, 4 points down, plenty of time left for the end of the game, and they run that fake punt where they could have punted the ball away, had the Redskins, down at least make them drive the length of the field. Do you think? Well, let's put it this way. When is a play that is a surprise play a bad call, and when isn't it, Robert?
Well, usually when it's over your own 50, I just can't imagine doing that. It tells this team that you have no faith in your offense. I mean, you have no faith in your defense getting a stop either. Now, a trick play, I remember one year that the Saints did an onside kick in the Super Bowl to start the second half. I believe in certain situations, doing a trick play, you want to leave it on the field, especially in these big game situations. And that was a playoff-like situation for Dallas. Now it looks like it's going to be all downhill, that the Minnesota game was more of a fluke. They were coming off a bye. Minnesota was on a short week. But doing one on the side of your own 50, I just can't imagine doing that. I remember one time that the Patriots had no faith in their defense against the Colts, went for it on fourth down inside. It was like the 30-yard line.
Yeah.
I remember Brady. Let me tell you something. Belichick was heavily criticized. I think they were on their own 29-yard line. They had 4th and 1. New England's playing Indianapolis. New England had a small lead at the time, a couple of points. And Bill Belichick knew if he got the first down, game's over. Peyton Manning's not getting the ball back. And if he punts the ball to Peyton Manning with the couple of minutes left, we know Peyton Manning's going to march down the field. And Bill Belichick went for the first down. It failed. And, of course, Peyton Manning then had a short field and took it in for the score. Tony Dungy criticized Bill Belichick. But I like the idea if you can end it at a certain time. You just try to end it and eliminate all the other elements. But I agree with Mac on the fake punt because it was 4th and 10. And what we talked about the other day, Mac and myself mentioned, when you're punting, you're standing back an additional good amount of yards. So you got a lot of yards to make up. You don't just have 10 yards. It's not like 4th and 1 in which you snap the ball and it never gets to the punter and someone else grabs the ball and they surprise the defense, like what the Giants did in that playoff game with the 49ers years ago with Gary Reasons. Okay? So, but it was a bold move. But then again, if it worked, imagine it worked. Dallas took it in for a touchdown and they won the game. I mean, there'd be people in Dallas calling Mike McCarthy a genius, okay, for what he did.
Yeah, it is a hit and miss. I do believe that you shouldn't play scared. Don't get me wrong there. Tennessee, I was at the Music City Miracle game with Buffalo. And I was watching that game at the end of the stadium thinking, okay, I'm hollering, get out of bounds. And I see the guy running down the field with the wide open lane there, Kevin Dyson, running it in for a touchdown because they completely caught the Bills off guard there.
I want to talk about this when he's done.
Sure.
No. I mean, I've watched 1,000 replays. They did it on a computer screen. It was definitely a legal play.
Oh no, it was a forward line. It was a no, that wasn't. That should have been what. Had that play taken place in this day and age, they would have waved it off. They would have waved it off.
I don't know. I don't know, Jack.
It's been looked over, Jack, with the computer animation.
I don't know, Jack.
It was a lateral.
I think
it didn't look that way to me.
I mean, it was close. It was close, Jack. But I don't know if they would have overturned that.
You know, the Buffalo Marv Levy fired the special teams coach
because of that.
Talk about one play that can alter a career of a coach. Special teams coach is fired based on that one play. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you know, Robert. When I was coaching, I always played. The position of the field was one of my first thoughts when I called plays, whether it was a run or a pass, or whether it was a defense I was setting up, and even in special teams, I think you've got to make a big decision, and you've got to be ready, and you've got to be coaching players in certain situations where you're going to try these trick plays or whatever kind of play you want to, and it's got to be a certain type of the game, and the score has got to be a certain type of score. I think the onside kick was a good call because at least they still got to drive the field. When you're doing something, from your own 20, 25-yard line, that's a little bit more risk than reward. And the play wasn't even a good play that they called trying to run the ball. I guess there might have been an option pass that he didn't use. I don't know. I just think it was confusing. As I agree with you saying that was playing scared. You don't have no faith in your defense at all. So I agree with you 100%.
Guys, both of you tell me something, especially you, Mac. You played the game. I didn't play the game. I've watched the game, for, many decades. It's a last play of the game. A team has the ball, let's say hypothetically, on their own 25-yard line. Why do they keep using these lateral plays that get, thrown backwards all the time, hoping a guy breaks free? Why not do it the old-fashioned way? Just send a couple of receivers and fling the ball as far as you can down the field. We don't get that anymore, it seems. I mean, maybe you get a lucky deflection. I just don't get why a quarterback can heave the ball down the field in a Hail Mary situation, a last play of the game when they're very deep in their own territory.
Well, Jack, I'll take a shot at it then, Robert. When you play quarterback or you're coaching, it again goes to the position on the field. If you're at your 20, there aren't too many quarterbacks that can throw the ball 80, 90 yards downfield. The defense is playing prevent. They're back by the end zone.
Yeah.
They're ready to come up. Sometimes a hook and ladder play worked for Miami once. We've used it a couple times where you throw it to receiver and a running back is trailing, and after he catches the ball, he laterals it to the running back or receiver following him. There's also where you can run a pass to one side of the field, the receiver or running back can throw the ball on a slant going the other way. That could work. But when you're on your last play of the game and you're that far in your territory, if you're at the 50, why not give it a shot and do a Hail Mary? But if you're deep in your own territory, there ain't too many quarterbacks can throw it 90 yards and there ain't too many defenders that should allow the receiver to get by him. So that's why they run a more of a trick play lateral from within their part of the field. So that's what I would say.
And back to that Dallas play, it was one of the worst I've ever seen as far as calling a trick play. Other than the Colts, speaking of Colts Patriots, you guys remember that Colts calling that trick fake punt in a Sunday night game about 7 or 8 years ago, where all the guy had nobody. There was all the Patriots were lined up on the Colts. He calls it, and then 4 Patriots tackle him. That was the worst trick play in the history of the game. I think. Call a timeout, man. It's terrible.
That's true. Let's talk about social media and players right now. As we see, everybody uses social media, of course. So it's a lot of self-promotion, a lot of ribbon back and forth. But as we saw with a certain receiver that's playing for Tampa right now, it kind of blew up in his face. And a lot of players use it, and they use it as I said, for self-promotion. It's not about the team. So do you think that social media is good for the players, and maybe they should try to stay off social media as much as possible, Robert?
Yeah, I know that LeBron says that he goes, what does he call it, 0 dark 30 during the playoffs. Remember Kevin Durant answering a social media, going back with somebody, and he uses his regular account rather than his burner account and goes at this person. It can be used to build your own brand. I get it. I mean, I understand these guys are it's a very short life for the most part in professional sports. You can use it for business purposes, building your own brand. As far as going back and forth with people, yeah, it can be toxic. You look at the Kevin Durant situation. A lot of these guys, they watch my show. I get notifications on Periscope. Antonio Brown's watched my show 3 or 4 times. A lot of these players watch my show when I comment on whether they should get an extension or not. And I'm not even like a regular TV person or anything. So, yeah, they do have rabbit ears. It is it can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's something I would go over a team with if I'm a head coach, like a Mike Tomlin or whatever. But definitely don't go social media live in the locker room. But I'm thinking about Antonio Brown with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Denver issue. But it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. And for the last topic, Robert, we look up to the players and all the sports leagues. Really, some people are very infatuated with them, and they're quoting them, they're following them, they're buying their memorabilia, their jerseys, all that stuff, and a lot of us, we listen to these top millionaire players when there is no their life is totally different than our life. I mean, we're out there, most of the majority of the Americans are out there working, trying to earn a living, trying to do the right thing. Some maybe not, but we look up to them, and then they come out and they give their opinions about certain things that have to do not just with their sport, but other things in the country. And we take their words a lot as it's right, or we pay more attention to them when their lives are have to do with partying in certain circumstances, new homes, new cars, boats. And why do we listen to these multimillionaires?
Well, because they have a platform and everything, and we shouldn't. I remember Charles Barkley. He had it right 25, 30 years ago when he made I'm Not a Role Model commercial. I was just watching The Last Dance again, the Michael Jordan documentary, and he just said, you know what? My energy was not that at the time to plug some politician. I did give the guy some money, contribution to his campaign. You got LeBron doing this, and quite frankly, I don't think we should, because half the time they don't even have their facts right. They only tell you one part of the story. They don't tell you the whole thing. And then they've got these activists who do not like sports at all, trying to guilt these players. And usually they're people in their 20s and 30s who have been focusing on their craft for years, don't have a full I don't know, idea of what they're talking about. So, yeah, I don't think we should listen to them personally, especially while they're playing for the most part, because they usually don't know what they're, talking about anyways, just because they have millions of dollars. Remember, they're still young. They're still immature. They still have some growing to do as a person. But, when I was a teenager, I hung on to every word that the athlete said.
See, I'm not saying this to just be politically correct. I'm really not. But the athletes are given a platform, and I don't object to them using it. It's a good thing if people use their platform. What bothers me is people can't get into a meaningful civil discussion without disagreeing with one another. If you disagree with someone, you put your status at stake all of a sudden. You put your job at stake. And that's what I don't like. I think people should be able to sit down and discuss their viewpoints without worrying about the repercussions, where they don't have to get that emotional and they can sort things out. I think we'd all be a lot better off if that were the case.
Yeah, it is a dicey situation going into that, but it just depends on what they use it for. I mean, I can understand using it for business and stuff.
Well, there was a story this past week in Sports Illustrated about athletes visiting the White House, and a lot of athletes declined the opportunity to visit the White House, and especially for those who never visited the White House. I mean, they let a great cultural opportunity pass them by, and obviously they didn't visit the White House because they objected to Donald Trump. But the issue is, it's not who's holding office at the time, because that's just temporary. The White House itself is permanent and has a great, great history. And part of that history would be what the people who boycotted the White House might actually approve of. So just the idea, you have an opportunity to visit the White House, to see the setup and say you were there and all. I mean, I don't think an athlete should bypass that opportunity, even if they strongly disagree with who the office holder is. That they're not backing the office holder in any way, shape, or form, or trying to validate the person who holds the presidency. But just the White House itself, they should be able to separate the symbol from who holds the office.
Yeah, I think it's got to the point now where it's so divided. To me personally, if they just did away with the whole White House thing, I would be fine with it. Not like bring the team up there. And I mean, a lot of players are going to disagree. Whoever's in the White House, some of the players may disagree with this person.
Yeah.
Some other players may agree with that person, the ownership. And then you got a division like that. The president should have better things to do other than keep teams. I know it's a long time tradition, all that, but I just think it's just let sports be its own entity and not mix it in with all that. But that's just my opinion.
Let me tell you, this went back a long way, Rob. When the Miami Dolphins many moons ago lost the Super Bowl to the Washington Redskins when Don Shula was the coach. After the game, Don Shula's being interviewed, and they said the president would like to talk to you, President Reagan. And that's highly unusual. The president talks to the losing coach. Reagan gets on there, and Shula smiles. He first congratulates Shula's team on a strong effort. Then he mentions one of the players, I forgot his name, who'd said something very nice about Reagan early in the week, and Reagan mentions it. And you could tell Shula's getting annoyed. He says, "Thank you, Mr. President. I'll tell the squad." At that point, Reagan was kind of playing a little politics, So
yeah, I mean, that's there's a lot of symbolism when it comes to politics. We all know that. But again, Robert Butler. He's with Sports Skope. Check out his show. It's awesome. He does more than just football. He does all the sports. Has some great guests on there. Check him out. You can find him on Facebook, and he's on all social platforms. I see him everywhere with the Sports Skope handle. That's with a K. Robert, thank you again for coming in and joining us on your weekly visit. We hope to have you back again next Sunday, Robert, and ready for some more great commentary from you. And thanks again for coming in, Robert.
All right, guys, enjoy the games.
Yes, we will. We definitely will.
Thanks.
So there you go, Jack. The great Robert Butler, and again, coming in on his weekly visit. We have a great preview of Sunday games coming up. We're going to go ahead and take our last break today, folks. So come back. It will be a short break, and me and Jack will get what we're paid all the big bucks to do, and that's to break down the games, and especially the locals. A lot of big games with them. So come back right after these messages, and we'll see you then.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.gov.
Every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with my co-host, Jack. And, Jack, we had two of our weekly guests come in, Anthony Cervino from Fantasy Football Face-Off and Robert Butler from Skope, both giving us great information about footballs today and a lot of different topics that we cover with Robert about different things in sports that are interesting to me, hopefully to you in the audience.
Mac, you know what I was thinking of a moment ago? The Jet and Giant game is on at the same time. I'm a Jet
Right.
fan. I think I'm going to be watching the Giant game, most of the Giant game.
Really?
Because how can I watch the Jet game when in my heart I'm not really rooting for them to win?
Wow.
They get 2-3 wins, it's going to screw up the draft. I mean, in the long run, the Jets are better off losing the game.
I mean,
They're better off losing the game, actually. So I would watch, don't misunderstand me, I would watch the game and I would be blank. I could never root for the Jets to lose, actually.
Right.
But
So
I'd be sitting there and I would be like a player that was sent to the bench who feels he should be in the game, having to root for his teammates. It's not a good feeling.
So is that
a good feeling watching the Jets today?
So is that why you don't want to watch him? Because you're afraid you're going to root for him, Jack? And that's
I'm scared. No, I'm scared. I'm not going to root against them, and I can't
Right.
bring myself to do that. I can't
Wow.
bring myself to root against my team. But I'm in the game. If the Jets win, are they really helping the franchise?
I mean, listen, Jack, I mean, we saw what happened with Miami last year. Everybody was saying maybe they should tank for Tua. They ended up getting him anyway because, of course, they had a lot of draft picks to give away, and so do the Jets, Jack. I mean, if you remember the Adams deal, they got a lot of first-round draft choices in that deal. So maybe they still can get their quarterback. Not saying that they can put together a winning streak like Miami did, but maybe they can play better and more competitive and maybe win 1 or 2 games and still end up with Tua, Jack. So, I mean, I understand.
What their quarterback? Well, listen, they're 1 game behind Jacksonville, and Jacksonville's starting Mike Glennon, who hasn't played an NFL game, hasn't started since 2017. So Jacksonville isn't exactly in a prime position themselves, and the Jets only 1 game behind them. So,
well, I mean, suppose the Jets behind the scenes, wheeling and dealing, go to Jacksonville and say, "Hey, say they win 3 games. We want the first round draft pick. We want to pick."
Jacksonville will jump on Trevor Lawrence. Are you
Wait a
kidding?
minute, wait a
They're
minute.
salivating now. Jacksonville is rooting for the Jets today.
But wait a minute. Suppose that the Jets do finish ahead of Jacksonville. They go to Jacksonville before the draft, say, "Hey, we want that first round draft pick. We want the first pick. We're going to give you our first pick plus our first pick next year, and another pick down the road." You don't think Jacksonville might bite on that?
No, not if they could. No, not if they could get Trevor Lawrence. If you can get your franchise quarterback of the future, you don't mess around. You don't mess around and make deals like that. Look in Indianapolis, they had Peyton Manning. They got rid of him because they had the number 1 overall choice in the draft in Andrew Luck.
Right.
Okay? So if a team was going to trade draft choices, Indianapolis was set at quarterback, even though Manning had been injured before.
I was just going to say.
Coming off an injury, they had a few seasons left for him, and they didn't trade him for a haul of draft picks.
Well, no, they didn't. But I was just going to bring up that they needed that quarterback because Peyton got hurt, and they wanted to push on for him. Of course, Peyton went on to win a Super Bowl with the Broncos.
He went to 2 Super Bowls in 4 years with Denver. So it worked out for both teams, actually.
Definitely did. So, Jack, we're going to do something we haven't done in a couple of weeks because we'll probably have a little extra time today. And this is, our coach's desk, Jack. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to follow up with our second part of the coach's desk, where as to bring viewers up to date.
You don't save this for Byron, do you? Byron?
No, I don't. No, I don't, because Byron and me would
dissect this better than me.
Well, because the situation here, Jack, is that I've been hired as a head coach for a losing program. Now, wait a minute. And
I feel I'm back in geometry class.
I need an offensive coach.
And I'm scared. When I was scared the teacher would call on me, I'm scared you're going to call on me.
So we're going to set up our team, Jack, and you're the offensive coordinator. And we went over the advantages the offense have, the snap count, knowing when the play is going to go, to try to, in that series of plays to make every play look the same so that the defense can't read our plays. So The next thing we would have to do, Jack, is address the offensive line. Say we're in a small college or even a high school program where they had a terrible program. They've been getting blown out for the last few years. So the most important part of the offense, of course, is the offensive line. You can have the greatest athletes in the world at running back and quarterback, and you might win the games against a team that's that you could play against equally, or a team that's less. But when you go up against the better teams, if you don't have an offensive line that works as a group and knows what they're supposed to do, you're going to lose the game. So let's take a look at that for real quick. In an offensive line, you have blocking rules, believe it or not, Jeff. All right, who you're supposed to block, and this is the line 101. So the first rule is inside, the person to your inside gap. The reason for that, of course, he has the quickest route to the running back or the quarterback. So if a guy lines up inside your gap, say you're playing right guard, he lines up to your left, that's your responsibility first and foremost. The second rule is over, which means if there's nobody in the inside gap, the guy that's in front of you, that's who you're responsible for. The third rule is out, and that's normally for outside, for a tight end or tackle. When you want to run outside, they call it a hook block, Jack, where you want to get to the outside of the guy to seal him off so he doesn't contain the running back from getting outside. So it's inside, out, and over. And they have to realize this through drills, and you do it with drills with dummies or even live to make sure that they pick up the right person. If they don't do it, your offense isn't going to work. That's 101. They've got to do it as a group. So now they're used to this. Okay, I got to block the inside guy. Well, suppose they have a guy over the top of them and inside. This is where communication, your linemen being smart, they call the linemen the smartest people in the game, and there is some truth to that. Your head has to be on a swivel, and there has to be communication. So the guy next to you, now you're going to take the inside gap, and you got a guy who's free. So either the center's got to come out and help you block that guy to your inside, or you're going to let that tackle know that you got this guy, he's got the guy over your head. So a lot of people think you just line up and block people. That's not how it goes at all. So those are the most important things, the most basic things that the lineman has to do. Normally it's run blocking, but it is used on pass blocking also so that the guy doesn't get to your inside gap. So when you see, even during a professional football game, a running back gets hit in the backfield or a quarterback gets sacked before he has time to throw it up the middle, that's the offensive line not doing the most basic thing as an offensive lineman does, their blocking rules.
How does double teaming work if there's an Aaron Donald, for example, a guy who's a devastating pass rusher? How does the double teaming of a player like that work?
So once you get to the more advanced, as an offensive coordinator, you're going to look at film and at certain people that have the biggest impact. You'll assign blocking rules depending on what the run is and what the pass is to double team, maybe triple team them, depending, again, Jack, so that's a lot more advanced, depending on what play you're calling and where you want to go with that play, how much time you think the play needs to develop. You'll even see running backs in the backfield, they will hesitate and let the block go through before they hit that hole, because sometimes you run the ball too fast to that hole and they haven't had a chance to move that defensive player out of the way. So that will be more advanced. We'll talk about that during the line. But the next two segments will be just on the offensive line. That's how important the offensive line is to your running and passing game. The most important part, don't forget that, people. So let's get to what we get paid to do, Jack, the big money we make, and that's to go through the games, break them all down, and at the end we'll pay strict attention and more focus to the local teams who we love to cover. So the Ravens got moved and the Steelers got moved to Tuesday. We don't come on till Wednesday, so they'll be playing before we get there. Of course, we know the problems the Ravens have had with the COVID, and the Steelers aren't happy because of some of that self-inflicted. They'll be playing Tuesday. The Steelers are favored by 3. This was a week or so back when they were scheduled to play on Thanksgiving. The Ravens are having problems on defense. They're kind of you kind of can read them. Their offense, what they do, there's no surprises there. They're mainly a running team. with Jackson. The Steelers a better overall team. They got a better offense as far as how they run their plays, and their defense is ferocious. Who do you got in that game, Jack?
Well, at last count, the Ravens had 18 players out.
Yeah.
And one of them is Lamar Jackson, who's not supposed to play Tuesday night. RG3 is going to be in his spot, but RG3 knows the offense, so I don't think they're going to take a major hit, even though obviously they prefer Lamar Jackson to be in there.
Sure.
And Des Bryant, they actually signed him to a contract. He came off the practice squad 1 week, and now they gave him a regular contract, which is a kind of a major story, him being back in the NFL for the first time in 3 years. But with that said, the Steelers are just too good. I think we used the term body language before. The Ravens' body language is about the worst in the NFL. They just seem deflated. The Steelers are focused. They're resolute. The Steelers are 10-0. Now the Steelers are going to be facing a little bit of a countdown. Can they go unbeaten for the year? It's kind of unfair because what the Steelers are basically on is the 14-mile point of a marathon that's scheduled for, a 26-mile marathon. They've got to win their last 6 games of the regular season, then win 3 in the playoffs. I mean, there's a long, long way to go. Yeah. But the Steelers are a ticked-off team. They're mad at the Ravens, mad at the organization. They're going to take it out on them, and the Steelers are going to win by a couple of touchdowns.
I agree. The rivalry, I think, will keep it closer than that, Jack, but I agree that the Steelers will win that game. You have the Raiders at the Falcons. The Raiders are favored by 3.5 over Atlanta. They played really well against the Chiefs. They ended up splitting the regular season. They're more physical than they've been in the past. It looks like Carr is finally developing into the quarterback drafted. They got a strong running game, physical defense. The Falcons looked like they were going to do something. They won a couple games, but then they got slapped back down again. I definitely like the Raiders in this game, Jeff.
I'll tell you, it seemed not that long ago that John Gruden was going to move on from Derek Carr. He just wasn't sure about him, but he stuck with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr's rewarding him. He looks like a franchise quarterback for the Raiders. When John Gruden got Marcus Mariota, there was a school of thought that maybe Mariota is going to challenge for the starting job. But Derek Carr's their guy this year, their quarterback of the future. He's come along great. The Falcons, as we mentioned before, playing much better on the interim coach, Raheem Morris. I mean, they're 3-7. Those early losses, games that got away that they should have won, have come back to haunt them. Falcons in a bit of a transition stage. Julio Jones, who is a superstar, is turned a bit more into a mentor for the other players like Calvin Ridley, the other wide receiver and so on. It's a sneaky game, a very sneaky game. I mean, I'm going to go with the Raiders on the road at Atlanta, but I could see Atlanta winning the game as well. Close game. Raiders, let's say 21-17.
Yeah, I think the Raiders do win this game. They need it, Jack. They need it to stay in the playoff race. The Falcons are still kind of flip-flopping. We got the Chargers and the Bills. We're going to get to that, at the end. The Giants and the Bengals at the end. The Titans and the Colts. Anthony touched on it with us. He likes the Colts again. I'm not so sure, Jack. I think the Titans, if they don't win this game, there's going to be a lot of problems. I mean, you figure they'll be, a game behind. The tiebreaker goes to the Colts. I don't know, Jack. I think that this is a place where the Titans got to win more than the Colts do. So I'm going to go with the team that needs to win more.
Yeah, I basically agree with you on that game. I look for Derrick Henry to have another big game. I mean, what else is really new? The Colts have won their share of tight games this year. They're really a well-rounded team, and they have one of the best offensive lines in the league, which has contributed to Phillip Rivers having a really good year when some people were thinking he was through. I look for a tight game, a squeak, maybe 19-16 Tennessee.
Yeah, I think they just need it more, and they're in a corner. You got the Panthers and the Vikings. I mean, I don't know. The Vikings are favored by 4.5. The Panthers, again, they play competitive. The Vikings look like their running games come back together, but they still don't have a team that I think can make the playoffs. I think it'll be a competitive game, Jack. I'm going to go with the Vikings just because of the experience. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers win this game.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota lacks a pass rush, which certainly is good news for Teddy Bridgewater. I can't believe the Vikings lost to Dallas last week. Had they won that game, they would be 5-5 right now, and they would really be making a strong playoff push. And it's a typical case this year with several of the teams, the Vikings amongst them. Those early season losses, I mean, they really come back to haunt you. But with that said, I mean, I think Minnesota is going to get it done, in this game. Let's call it 23-19.
There you go.
Yeah, thereabouts.
There you go. The Dolphins at the Jets. As we said, Tua is not playing. Fitzpatrick is playing. If my memory serves me correctly, Fitzpatrick played for the Jets. Am I saying that right, Jack?
Fitzpatrick's played for everybody. He's played for Buffalo, the Jets, Houston, Tampa Bay. I mean, on and on and on.
Through the gambit.
Man, well traveled, and don't be so sure he's not playing for someone else next year as well.
I think the Dolphins beat the Jets. On paper, they should pretty much beat them by at least 2 scores. The Jets, I just don't know what kind of besides playing for their jobs or maybe playing on another team for tape reasons, to get there. I just don't know if the Jets have what it takes to even keep this game close.
The Jets are going to win a game before the year is over. Who they're going to beat, I don't know. This could be potentially a dangerous game for the Dolphins, and you could argue it's the NFL. Every game is dangerous, but the Jets didn't play. They didn't play poorly against the Chargers last week, and the players aren't tanking it on the Jets.
No.
I mean, everyone is trying to save their job, and but the Dolphins are coming off a loss. So
yes,
you're not going to be complacent. When you're coming off a loss, you're not complacent no matter who you're playing the next week. But I actually look for a tough game, a close game, and I'm going to call it 23-20 Dolphins.
Okay. Maybe you have to pick it up a little bit here so we can get to the locals. The Browns and the Jaguars. Jack, I see no reason why the Browns shouldn't win this game. No reason at all.
Yeah, I mean, with Mike Glennon starting at quarterback for Jacksonville, Baker Mayfield hasn't exactly established the passing game. And Jarvis Landry, the great Brown receiver, he hasn't been targeted as much as you would think he would, a guy of his caliber. They basically, did it on their running game with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. It's a dangerous game there for Cleveland, but I'm not that sure Cleveland's going to win the game. Cleveland could be a bit dysfunctional. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Wow. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm going to pick Jacksonville 22-21 over Cleveland.
Wow.
There you
go. That's a brave prediction.
Wishful thinking.
The Saints and the Broncos, Jack, we don't know who's going to quarterback. I got a phone call this morning. I told him I was busy. The Saints should win that game going away, Jack.
Let me tell you, Broncos still have a good defense, and it's a fun game. Memories of Tom Matty in the 1965 big playoff game, Colts against Packers, where he was a halfback who taped the plays on his wrist. They had it written down. It's not that bad in this day and age, but it's always fun to see a non-quarterback a team. It's like a position play in baseball, Mac taking the mound. It's kind of fun. We get a kick out of it. Yeah, how can you pick against New Orleans in this game, especially with Denver not having a quarterback of their own? Let's call it 23-7 New Orleans.
Okay, the Rams and the 49ers, Jack. Not only are the Rams banged up, but they don't have a home anymore. The 49ers are banged up but don't have a home no more. They're playing at the Rams. I think the Rams are just a better team right now, Jack.
I think the Rams are the best all-around team in the NFL. I don't think they're going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but the Rams, I mean, they're well off in every position,
Yeah.
and they should take care of business against the 49ers. But every time the 49ers play the Rams, it's a competitive game. But let's call it 2013 Rams.
Okay. And we also have the Chiefs and Bucks. I don't know, Jack. I just think the Bucks are a little dysfunctional right now. I like the Chiefs.
The Bucks are so dysfunctional that I think they're actually going to win the game in a shootout. Okay, that's how dysfunctional are. Bucks have a lot of great players. I mean, Leonard Fournette, Rodney Jones in the backfield, the receiver core. I don't have to tell you much. Antonio Brown obviously is going to get targeted more. He hasn't caught a touchdown pass yet, but he's caught, I think, 15 passes in the last couple of games, and I look for like a wild game.
Okay.
I look like, let's call it 34-33 Bucks. It's going to really open up, and wild things are going to happen. In that game. Yeah.
So the Bears and Packers we discussed too. The Bears, you know something. This is where I call for the upset, Jack. I think the Bears defense gets after Rodgers. I think that the forgotten quarterback who got replaced has a good game, and they have enough to beat the Packers, by a few points.
I'll tell you, the Packers started the year so nicely, and they're at 7-3. They're still in a good spot, but they just seem to be on cruise control this year. I don't understand it. But the bottom line is Mitch Trubisky against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, who are you going to pick? I mean, I'll go with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I just like the Bears defense.
Packers 26-17.
Yeah, I just like the Bears defense a lot more than like the Packers defense, Jack. And I think that might propel.
And I like Lambeau Field,
Yeah.
So that's a factor that helps.
That's true. That's true. But they both.
But they're no fans. Yeah.
And they both play in cold weather, so the weather ain't going to be a factor. So let's get to the locals, Jack. Chargers and the Bills. The exciting young quarterback with the Chargers, Herbert. Of course, we know Josh Allen's having his best year so far as a pro. I think the Bills have a better receiving core. I think the defenses are probably equal. This might be a very close game, but I'm going to give the edge to the Bills. I think they can win by a couple field goals, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills have something going for them you can't say about most of the teams in the NFL. They're healthy at the time. I mean, relatively healthy. And they need to win these games. I mean, they're in a dogfight with the Dolphins for the division lead. Bills are well rested. I mean, Bills should win. Anthony Lynn, the head coach of the Chargers, he fired their special teams coach, George Stewart.
Yeah.
To make such a drastic move like that in season shows things a bit shaky with the program a little bit. And I think Bills are going to win more decisively than that. And all due respect to Justin Herbert, who's had an amazing rookie year. Buffalo Bills should win this game, something like 27-13.
Okay. So we got we covered the Dolphins and the Jets already. Again, we both feel the Dolphins should win that game, maybe closer than what people are saying.
I think we're going to have a close game here.
Yeah. So, we have an interesting game, the Cardinals and the Patriots. The Patriots normally can scheme with Bill Belichick. They scheme good against Patrick Mahomes. The Patriots they got upset last week, but then the week before that, they beat the Ravens. This team is, as you said, I think is maybe a 500 team at best. It's a rebuilding year. They're gonna get a lot of changes, I think, coming up next year. I think the Cardinals are favored by 2.5. They both need the game. The Cardinals are in the toughest division, in the West, I think, in football. But I think the Cardinals have too much firepower for the Patriots. I think that Kyler Murray is exciting as maybe not as good as yet as the Texans quarterback, but I think that he's a very big threat. If he's not injured, Jack, I think the Cardinals win by at least a field goal.
You're saying if Kyler Murray's shoulder's been bothering him, and the Arizona backup is Brett Hundley.
Right.
Okay, so Brett Hundley, I mean, put him against the Patriot defense, he's going to have a lot of problems, and that's a much older Patriot defense. They're going to have to address that in the offseason because they have one of the older defenses in the league. Cliff Kingsbury was talking the other day, and it's very interesting. He was talking about the way Arizona always scripts their plays, the first 10, 15 plays at the start of the game. And a lot of other coaches do it as well. Maybe all the coaches do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I absolutely hate these scripted plays because you don't know where the ball is going to be on the field and so on. Situations vary. And I hate any plays really being scripted. To me, it's a play. It should always be a play at a time because you don't know the condition of the field. And once you script the plays, you set a mindset. It's kind of like etched in stone. This is what you have to do and so on. I think back to when Charlie Weiss coached Notre Dame. There was a dying kid. One of his last wishes was for Notre Dame to run a play he was giving to Charlie Weiss. Well, Notre Dame was backed up near their own goal line. There was some type of reverse. Charlie Weiss ran the kid's play, and they gained like 12 yards on the play, and you could see the biggest smile on his face because he never would have called that play, and it worked. So, you never know. But with that said, I would think Arizona is going to beat New England, okay, maybe 17-14.
Yeah, I think
the big talk after the game is they're going to move on from Cam Newton. The Cam Newton saga will continue.
Well, I think the Patriots definitely could win this game, depending on Kyler Murray if they can get pressure on him and hit him, and maybe Cam. The Patriots definitely have a shot. I just think the Cardinals will sneak by him. We got the Giants in Cincinnati. This is the first game the Giants are really favored in, and on paper should win with the Bengals quarterback being out. I think even if he was in, they'd be favored. They're favored by 5. I don't think there's any reason why the Giants should win.
There's a lot of dissension in Cincinnati with their coach, Zach Taylor. A lot of dissension. Not only him, with the assistant coaches, the players reportedly are very unhappy. I look for a dominating Giant performance, okay? Yeah. Dominating Giant performance. First game of the year where they truly dominate. Let's call it Giants 27-0 over the Bengals today. Dominant performance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
no Joe Burrow in. Cincinnati completely demoralized. I think the Giants just run over them, and people will be raving about Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, this is a spot for him to win, that's for sure, and take first place. And the last game is very interesting to me, the Seahawks against the Eagles, Jack. I mean, the Eagles are spiraling out of control. I can't even put my finger on it. It just looks like the play calling is bad at a lot of situations, and that's not the Eagles. And Carson Wentz is having his problems. He's making some bad decisions, holding on to the ball too long, and in a lot of instances, he's throwing the ball up for grabs. I just don't understand what happened to the Eagles from last year to this year, where they were in bad shape, and they jumped out pretty quick. I see the Seahawks. I would love to see the Eagles. I would love to see all the locals win, but I would love to see the Eagles upset the Seahawks. But I don't think it can happen, Jack. I think the Seahawks win.
Well, if the Eagles lose, I mean, they're going to fall out of first place. The Giants are going to be in first place tomorrow, I think. Russell Wilson is 5-0 lifetime against the Eagles. Obviously, he's had a ton of success against them. Jamal Adams, I was going to say the Jets safety, the Seahawks safety. He's playing with a really bad arm. Bad arm. He wants a new contract, so he's showing the Seahawks he's willing to do whatever it takes, so on. Chances are he'll get a good contract. Doug Peterson, the Eagle coach, has been under a lot of heat. There's some talk going on that he actually wouldn't mind getting fired and going elsewhere. He can't take it anymore. And Jeff Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, walked out on practice the other day. They're not sure whether it was COVID or whether he was just disgusted with what he saw.
Yeah. Well, Jack, that wraps up our show for today. And this was of course, our Sunday preview game. We're on every Sunday, folks. We're on from Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. And we're here for all your sports information, especially the locals. Join us Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Thank you to the guests, Anthony Cervino and Robert Butler, for joining us like they do every Sunday. Thanks to BST Sports Cards and Breaks, our newest sponsor of the three we have. And we'll be getting you a lot more information on them as we do our commercial reads. And every day we're on, we'll be plugging them. So, Jack, you have a great day today. Enjoy the games. And there should be some real good ones on today, Jack. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, man.
Hey, second one, listen, after the Jets and Giants are done, we have Kansas City at Tampa Bay. What a game.
It should be great. So, folks, have a great Sunday. We'll see you back Wednesday. Join us where we'll have some more great guests and great sports news and information for you. You all have a great day, and we'll see you on Wednesday.